Hello, I'm Dawn Childs, and I'm the CEO of Pure Data Centres. I'm so pleased that you've been able to join us today because careers are really important. And whilst I'm the CEO of a data centre company today, I really didn't start here. Yes, I am a trained engineer, but I've worked in several engineering environments, including the Air Force, airports, theme parks, as well as National Grid, and finally here at Pure Data Centres. So if you're currently excited and interested in engineering, or maybe a technical career, but not too sure what you're going to do, I think having a little bit of a talk with some of our fabulous engineers and ladies who work at Pure Data Centres is a great place to start, because we might be able to give you some valuable insight about how you could move forward into a technical career, or at least start thinking about what you might want to do once you've left training and education.
So we wanted to talk to you today about the career options available in the data center industry. There is so much opportunity here. The industry is growing and growing, and we need more great engineers. So today I'm joined by a panel of my fabulous colleagues from different areas and different roles across the business who are going to share some of their personal experiences with you. Thank you so much for submitting the questions. And I'm going to go straight over to the panel if they could introduce themselves first before we launch into those. Franzi, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Franzi Marshall. I'm a project manager in Pure Sustainability team. And sustainability at Pure sits in the technology department, and we work closely with operations and constructions to implement sustainability measures across the business.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia Camargo. I am a graduate and energy engineer with master in energy engineer as well. And I've been working Pure for almost 2 years, currently as a site performance engineer, mainly responsible for planning our maintenance, predictive and corrective maintenance in our site in Dublin, Ireland.
Hi, my name's Maeve. I'm an electrician by trade. I'm now working as a maintenance technician, which means I'm doing HV and LV switching as part of my job within the data center. I work a shift rotation for Pure. I previously worked in one other data center, and prior to that, I worked on MOD contracts actually throughout, in Westminster mostly. I retrained as an adult, so I retrained when I was 28, so I came to the engineering late, and I really enjoy doing a practical job.
What was it that inspired you to pursue a career in engineering?
So I've always loved study physics. I have to mention that, especially mechanical and classical physics and mathematics. So I've been always interested in understand the physical principles and how things work. Apart from that, I also have 3 older brothers who are also engineers and who always guided my curiosity into the engineering path. So I'd mention that my curiosity and physics interest me.
And was it similar for the rest of you, or was there different things that spiked your interest with engineering? Yeah, there's always a new problem to solve with engineering, I suppose.
All the time.
I can maybe add a slightly different view to that, because I'm the one lady on the call who is a woman in engineering without having an engineering degree, but working in the technology team means that ultimately you have that exposure to engineering. So it's sustainability at Pure and in the data center environment is quite technical. Obviously, there's different aspects to it. There's a softer side, so thinking about ESG, so environmental, social, and governance. There's the softer side to it, but especially when it comes to environmental management, and as Julia said, energy management, which is ultimately what sustainability during operations comes down to. You get into the nitty gritty quite quickly. And my background is in construction, so I used to work in construction. I've also worked in pure construction teams or pre-construction teams, and moved into sustainability. And I'm now getting that exposure to operations, really, so operating data centers and understanding how the engineering side of things works and what's important. And I think what Maeve said is, whilst my role isn't, hands-on maintenance in the data center itself, but it makes things a lot more. It just becomes something that's a lot less fluent, right? If you can see what you're doing, and if you can work with people on site who can execute the tasks that you've been working on and planning. I find that really satisfying and quite exciting, and there's a lot to learn on as well.
Maeve, you also mentioned that you retrained and got into engineering as an adult. What was it that tempted you over to the engineering side?
It was a keenness to do something practical. I didn't go to university after I'd finished my A levels, and I've got jobs, and I'd moved up in customer service roles, and I ended up doing call forecasting and planning in a call center, which was a good job, but I was really quite bored by it. And then I moved home to help take care of my dad, who got ill, and my parents said, you should go to university now, because they believe in education, and they thought that was very important. But I knew I wouldn't do well at university. Although I love learning, I'm not actually very good at hitting actual goals for certain aspects of it. So I understood myself enough to say, actually, I think I want to do something like trade. And I almost flipped a coin between plumbing and electrics, but then I looked up the actual fees, and electricians normally get paid more. So it was a serious motivating factor in choosing that. And there were no places on plumbing courses. The amount of times I've shown up to building sites and been asked if I'm the decorator, even if I'm carrying electrical test equipment and a ladder, and I'm just kind of like, no.
Clearly not.
There are very few women doing an actual electrical trade, and the amount that don't stay past the 5-year mark, I believe, is still alarming. Yeah.
And I think the sort of the financial piece is very important, because there are so many job gaps, and you talked about retention of women in industry, and particularly in hands-on trades, but there are so many job gaps, literally hundreds of thousands of technical and engineering jobs that need filling over the next few years, for all sorts of things. So that the green skills agenda, obviously data centers, we've got several thousand gaps that will be coming up over the next coming years, as well as your standard sort of aviation, travel sectors, mechanical and electrical type engineering in all sorts of trades and industries. So I think financial motivation as well as practical curiosity is just as good, because you know that you will be able to land a really meaningful career, which can change. All of us have had slightly different backgrounds, and it just shows that you don't get stuck in one particular industry or one particular trade necessarily. You can move between the two if you have a basic grounding in engineering or an appreciation of technical skills. So I think it's really important that financial motivation can be one of them. You can have a very great fulfilling career and be remunerated and paid well for it.
And I think also know that the job opportunities are out there. Often when studying, we choose the things that are interesting, but we don't necessarily know the industry or know that there are going to be plenty of jobs and plenty of opportunities wherever it is in the country we might want to go and pursue a role. So I think with data centres, that opportunity really is there. And as you said earlier, Dawn, it's only growing. There are only going to be more opportunities.
Well, and I think the purpose piece is often quite another important motivation for people when choosing their future careers. And if you think of data centers being a pathway to enabling everything that people do on a daily basis, anyone that's using their phone, using computers, doing anything for their work, their social life, or their training or education, you are using data centers. That's all going back to a data center. And if we then bring on artificial intelligence, which could be hugely impactful for everybody, for the entire human race, if it finds pathways to new ways to medicate people, new innovations to solve for the climate crisis. Really important. And also technical skills and technical careers will help find that pathway to net zero and to ensuring that we're paying back to the planet as well. So it's a really purposeful career within a data center.
And I think that's also maybe to add on to the point that Dame Dawn just made. I think the luxury that we have at Pure is that we cover such a broad span of the life cycle of data centers, right? So we have an opportunity to really influence from a selfish perspective, from a sustainability aspect, to influence and consider things really early on, and to take that red thread through, which means ultimately that, you know, if you are looking to pursue the career in engineering, there's an engineering opportunity at each stage, right? So there's the constructions, there's operations, there's a optimization aspect to it, which is similar to what Julia does, you know, performance measures, and what Maeve does, which is, you know, making sure that everything keeps up and running. So there's a lot of different opportunities. I think even just us as, you know, a single business, there's so many different paths that you can go down to, which is quite special actually.
So in terms of those skills that you think are important when pursuing a career in engineering, what would you say they are, Dawn?
And so I think if you take the French word for an engineer, which is ingénieur, really relating back to being ingenious, I think you need to be curious, you need to be passionate, and you need to just want to make things better. And so it doesn't matter if you don't have those skills now. Yes, maths might be important if you want to go and do an engineering degree to design the next space shuttle, but actually just practical skills rather than needing super duper analytical educational skills is important. So anybody, whatever your educational background, if you're curious, if you're passionate, and you want to help make the world a better place, I think that engineering is for you. So don't necessarily get hung up on skills and educational background. Think about what you want to do and what difference you might like to make, and then try and find the route in for you. There are many pathways in, and we have some great examples here at Pure. Indeed, one of our apprentices was actually started out as one of our cleaners in the data center, and has then found a pathway to being trained as a hands-on engineer and joining Maeve and the team in the London data center. So think about what motivates you and what you're passionate about, and rather than dwelling on the skills and the academic pathways in. Yes, of course, there are academic pathways in, but there are also practical pathways in.
Julia, what training do you recommend for someone entering the field?
Yeah, so taking what Dawn just said, before listing a series of possible certifications and trainings, I believe that first of all, it's important for the student and the woman that are pursuing engineer career is understand which kind of professional, which kind of engineer you'd like to be, which work do you like to do, and which kind of job would like to perform. So, given that, I believe that get in touch with other women engineers through professional societies and communities, it's a way to reach out and understanding the broad engineering field. Because as Dawn mentioned, engineering is a broad area, right? So we can work with high, medium, low voltage. We can work with ventilation, HVAC system, mechanical, avionics, and so on. Data analysis, monitoring, acquisition, and so on. So the area is really huge and vast. So I think that that's it. First of all, is understand what drawn your attention and which kind of professional you'd like to be. Reach out with women who are working in engineering. So we have here in Pure, for example, Maeve, the hands-on engineers. We have other women professionals that work in data analysis or in design team. So we can reach out us, for example, and make questions. What do you do? Uh, which activities you performing during in your day by day and daily basis, for example. And from that, you have people to inspire yourself to like look up to, and then define some professional goals. Obviously, I can mention in my particular case that I'm passionate for data acquisition and analysis, and also in electrical and mechanical systems. So I try to be always updated and getting training in this field. So I can mention here as well, for example, that is very important. You always looking for develop skills such as teamwork, project management, and communication, apart from the technical certifications and trainings.
Picking up on what you said there, Julia, I think that's a really important point. Sometimes when we think about the training that we need, particularly at that point of studying, we can really focus on, oh, you know, I must know this very specific thing, but attitude massively comes into this. And when we think about the point at which, you know, maybe there's 30 people doing the same course, if those 30 people come away with the same certification, how are you going to stand out when you're when you're all being interviewed for the same role together? And I think working on those attitudes and those sort of behaviors that you have within yourself are really going to help set yourself up for success when it comes to getting yourself that first job and standing out. Yeah, I think some of the things like communication skills, teamwork skills, often we can get really in sort of a silo thinking of, I'm going to study all of these things and know all of this knowledge, but we might not flex and work and build those skills, which are the things that are going to really help support you to have a successful career. So I think that's a really good point. You know, those sort of attitudes and behaviors are just as important as the technical
Yes.
knowledge sometimes.
In my case, for example, Sophie, I always had a couple of people and women in my life that I admired and still admire. And I always think, oh, in order to be a data center engineer or electrical or mechanical engineer, I really would like to be like this person, this woman. So, which course should I take to reach there and so on? I also remember during my college period, I had contact with IEEE Women Engineering branch. So IEEE is a worldwide community, and there is a particular branch, Women's Engineering, that promote courses, events, lectures for women to attend. And I've been in contact with this community still so far. And so what I'm trying to say is it's important and it's possible we get examples and guide stars to ourselves as professionals.
Absolutely. So bringing it back to sort of data centers and what it was that brought us here, Maeve, what was it that made you choose data centers?
Where I'd worked previously, I'd ended up, like, as you're saying, about not knowing where your career is going to lead you to a certain extent. When I applied for my job at the MOD contract, I didn't know what a HV or an LVAP was. I didn't know the approved persons system. I had never done that before. Essentially, I used to joke about changing a lot of light bulbs when I told people I was an electrician. And since moving into data centers, I don't think I've touched a light bulb in about 2 years. Oh, sorry. Once I got that qualification, once I found out what that was and I became that person, it immediately led to data centers, and it's where that that qualification is something that actually everybody on our team is. Under other contracts, you would have maybe 2 people in a team of 30 who would have that qualification. Our aim is to have everybody in the team be available to do the required switching because of the nature of how a data center is. Our data center, you're talking about UPSs having generation backed up. That requires LV or HV switching under daily circumstances in certain circumstances. I previously worked at a company that had previously been a disaster recovery center. I think they started in the 80s, and that naturally grew into being a data center. Their business pivoted to a certain extent, but that's the first example of data centers that I had. Seeing how Pure has built theirs differently and now working in it, I'm much happier to be in a place where the end goal was always we will protect the power supply for the servers. When people ask me what a data center is, because that's usually the second question after I tell them what I do, I tell them that it's, the cloud, it's basically a bunch of servers in another room that everybody's taking care of. And I'm one of the people who takes care of them. And that's the best explanation I can come up with.
It's a very good one. We are, we do build the big shiny buildings that the cloud lives in, and you make sure that the cloud is there and available whenever we want it, Maeve.
Yeah, that's why it's 24/7.
And what is it that you love about your job, Maeve?
I really like the practical aspect of it. I did a desk job, customer service jobs for 10 plus years. And although I was good at it, I didn't really have any passion for it. I always enjoy actually seeing a product at the end of the day. If you've completed one of the tasks that I'm given, even if it's just a PPM or something like that, confirming, making sure everything's done, it's a tick in a box to a certain extent, but you're physically looking at a piece of machinery, making sure that box is ticked and confirming that everything's doing what it should be doing. And when something goes wrong, the day goes really quickly. You're run off your feet. And obviously not everything goes wrong all the time, or just something happens. We've got X to do today. We had a buffer vessel blow. We've had leaks on chillers, those kind of things. When you lose pressure on systems, you're transferring to backups. We've got N+1. We've got to make sure that the data halls are steady environment-wise, those kind of things. It's busy, and that really does make the day go quickly. HV is above 1,000 volts. LV is considered below that. Julia mentioned something about MV earlier, but we don't really have that in the UK. We're literally talking about high voltage, and when you're talking about a domestic property, you're talking about up to 230, 240 volts that would come out of your socket in your environment. We're talking about 3-phase power, which is, like I said, up to 1,000 volts being stepped down through 11 kV transformers. So there's power transference, there's power being utilized in DC and in AC, because we've got batteries that are backing up the chillers, and then we've got the generation that comes through. That technically comes through as low voltage is considered, but like I said, that's still a significant voltage in comparison to your domestic supplies.
And that's why it's
kind of clear.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so critical, the work that you do, right? Because ultimately you make sure that we can step down the power to be able to actually use in our data center, because it doesn't, the high voltage power that comes into the building doesn't work for our systems. So that's the critical aspect, right, that you run. So if you don't do that, and if you don't make sure that things run smoothly, then we could use power to the different systems that we're using in the building. So yeah, probably the most important job to begin with.
Yeah, that's a great explanation of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's important to give people a breadth of understanding around the different jobs available in the industry. And I know we wanted to get to that, because as well as the engineering, and there's just been described, it's interesting engineering, yes, high voltage, low voltage, also some mechanical systems, but there are a plethora of other jobs in data centers. And I'll give you just a flavor here. So we have everything from our lawyers, security guards, electrical and mechanical engineers that we've already covered, but also construction experts, project managers, admin support people, human resources, financial planners. We have to have some IT experts as well to help us with our IT systems, sustainability specialists like Franzi, as well as climate and plant scientists, because we do an awful lot of sustainable research and development to try and support our future data center rollout, as well as sales and commercial teams, financial and customer service agents, so that there's an awful lot of roles. So you don't just have to be an engineer to work within what seems to be a technical environment. There literally is a role that would suit everybody.
The last point I was going to direct to you, Dawn, which is what do you see as the future for data centres, and how can our audience make the most of this opportunity?
So the future of data centres is phenomenal. It is an industry that is growing because everybody uses IT, everybody uses their phones, their smart tablets. Everybody's work is connected back through a server and through IT, and hence through data centers. And especially with the proliferation of AI, we need even more data centers. So think of it like the fourth utility. One of the first things you check when you go and buy a new house is what the broadband speed is. So without a data center, you have really bad broadband speed. So it is a necessity to our future life. So I think the future for data centers is very strong. We do need to become more sustainable though. So the looking at the pathways to net zero and making data centers planet positive, and creating data centers for good, not just for the good of humanity in terms of artificial intelligence and enabling everything that we do, but also for the good of the planet is really important. So we need passionate people to come and help us to make the difference that's needed.
So thank you to everyone for joining us today, and thank you to each member of our panel, as well as our brilliant colleagues, Julia and Katie, working behind the scenes to make today happen. If today has sparked a desire in you to explore data centres as an option, please feel free to get in touch with us at purepotential@puredc.com. Thank you for your time today.